Welcome to the holding space for joy and sorrow. And with any mindfulness meditation practice, there are three quite distinct stages. So the first is to set an intention. You may just want to sense for yourself what your intention is for being here. Is it to, calm down a little so that you can sleep? Is it to focus your mind for the day? Is it to learn something new? What is your intention? What is your need? And of course, once we've set an intention, then we move into the practice itself. And we're going to just talk about two distinct styles of practice today. So the first is a focused attention. It's where we really direct our mind onto one thing, one anchor point. And it's the sort of practice that helps us cultivate concentration, focus. It's very good for academic work or for reading longer pieces of writing. It's often quite highly acclaimed in the research for helping people to develop their attention span. So it's used for, people with ADHD, for example, or difficulties in concentrating. But then the second type of meditation is cultivating open awareness. And we'll do a bit of that today. But open awareness is this sense that we can create a space and life can move through it. So it's a space for us to witness the senses, sounds that come into your environment, images in the space where you're practicing this morning, obviously tastes in the mouth or smells, and the sense of touch, our relationship with the body too. So this open awareness hasn't got a particular direction. It's much more about sitting still and letting life move through. And this comes with some of the underlying philosophy of the Eastern wisdom traditions, that everything is impermanent. And of course, these last few years, we've really got a real felt sense of that. I think before the pandemic, people thought they could plan their life and, could set a date for something and make it happen. And then we realized that actually nothing is certain. And that has increased the level of anxiety worldwide. And at the same time, it's allowed us to touch into a real fundamental truth that we can never predict anything. So the very best thing we can do for ourselves is learn to be present in this moment. The other thing with open awareness is it really allows us to touch into this quality or this truth of interconnectedness. That what I do impacts you, what you do impacts me, and in terms of our relationships with the world around us. And interconnectedness can offer us incredible support at times of difficulty. And at times of joy, of course, our interconnectedness spreads that joy to others. We know how it feels to be in the presence of someone who is happy, who is open, who has a spaciousness about them. And although we may not be like that all the time, we all have the capacity. So interconnectedness is another truth that can really support us in our practice. Okay, so let's begin with our mini practice, one for settling the mind. And when I'm teaching longer programs on mindfulness, we often use this jar of water as a metaphor for the mind. So let's say you've had a good sleep and you wake up to the alarm. It's like something gets shaken in you. And then you have to jump out of bed and it's freezing cold, or it's too hot, or you can't find your clothing or whatever. And as the day goes on, the mind gets shaken up. And it looks and feels a little bit like this. But sometimes we think that when we meditate, we're trying to get rid of all those little particles, all those thoughts that go around the mind. But that's not actually the case. All we need to do is relax. And all these little particles, these thoughts, just drop down and leave us clear and open. So I'll put this jar of muddy water down, and at the end of the practice, we'll see whether it's clear and open and whether our minds are clear and open as well. And sometimes when I'm teaching, people say to me, I can't meditate because I can't empty my mind of thoughts. And that's a real mistake. I don't know where it's been written down, but our thoughts are as integral to our mind as our breathing is to our lungs, as the beating is to the heart. Thoughts come and they go. It's what the mind does. And of course, our thoughts give us access to insight, access to wisdom, to this knowing of what is appropriate to do in a given moment. So our thoughts are really vital. Where we get ourselves stuck is that those thoughts transition into thinking. We kind of hold on to them. And if you think about this with the breath, you know, if we inhale, exhale, it's a lovely soothing rhythm. The same way a thought can come, it can go. But if we inhale and hold on, and hold and hold and hold, we get tight. We get, this sense of anxiety. All sorts of things happen when we try and grip onto life, whether it's a breath, whether it's a thought. And so the settling practice that I'll guide us through now is really about honoring that thoughts are there, that they can come and go the same way that the breath comes and goes. So let's begin. Finding your comfortable seated position. Or if it's nighttime for you, you're welcome to lie down flat or with the knees bent in constructive rest pose. And it can be helpful whether you're sitting or lying to bring the hands onto the belly so that you have a felt sense of the breath. And so the intention for this practice is to allow the mind to settle. We're not doing the settling. That feels forced in some way. We're simply going through a practice that will have the result of the mind settling. It's like a byproduct. So our attention needs only be on the practice itself. And then at the end, you can ask yourself, does my mind feel a little more settled? Because that is our intention. So feeling into that long spine, maybe softening a little in the shoulders, drawing them back, can just help us get full access to the lungs. And sensing into this breath, the one that's arriving right now in your nostrils, and the one that is floating out. Notice the speed of your own breath. And just see if you can slow the breaths down a little bit. Maybe even deepen them. And if the hands are at the belly, You may be able to feel the breath pushing down into the abdominal cavity, giving us the feeling that we're breathing with the belly, the most soothing way to breathe. And thoughts will be here, of course they will. That's completely fine. It's what the mind does. Our focus, though, is on the breathing. So when you notice a thought arises, there's no need to push it away. We can even spot it and say, hello, thought. And then the mind gently returns to the rhythm of the breath. Rhythms are very soothing for our nervous system. And when the nervous system is at ease, the mind too can settle down. We can find ourselves feeling safer to rest in this moment. If the mind is very busy, we can always give it a second task, and that is to count. So just check your own breathing rhythm, and as you inhale, count to maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4. And as you breathe out, allow that same count. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. Just to find the balance of the inhale and the exhale. So as you notice, we're focusing attention on the rising and the falling of the breath. Thoughts will come and they'll go without us needing to cling onto them in any way. And the counting can just help the mind keep an extra point of focus, an additional anchor in the present moment. And now letting the counting dissolve away. And finding your own breathing rhythm once more. Maybe some breaths are longer than others, some are shorter. Just feeling into what your body needs. In fact, letting the body breathe for you. And so this is a practice that focuses our attention on the breath with the intention of settling the mind. And at the start, I shook up our glass of water, and let's see now. The thoughts or the mud are at the base. They've just dropped down quite naturally without any effort on our part, leaving the mind clear, reflective, spacious, open.